Holding on to a few brighter spots also, and in that brightness as well, temperatures a little up compared to where we have been today, around 20 to 23 degrees Celsius for central Scotland, into parts of the south as well, but still very cool and disappointing in that central area. The rain will ease off as we head into Sunday evening, just in time for any outdoor viewing parties for the Euros Grand Final. And as we head into the next week, though, do be prepared for more areas of low pressure, rain and showers to start arriving. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have saved Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Albie Amoncona, Dr Renee Holdecamp, Madeline Grant and Benjamin Butterworth. Tonight on the show...
Should ex-convicts ever be allowed to become MPs?
Ed Miliband is not the grown-up in the room.
Stella Suella has lefties losing it once again.
Has the UK media class got the hots for Keir Starmer?
And Joe Biden is a great president. That's why he should leave.
It's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. A very warm welcome to the Saturday 5. Well, folks, it's coming home, or rather, they're coming home. Sir Keir Starmer has flung open the prison doors, sending thousands of convicts back into society. Just as well, right? It's not like Britain isn't already looking like a scene from Mad Max meets Coronation Street. So, to all of you returning renegades, if you miss the bedlam, if you miss the chaos, if you miss the charm and company of your old cellmates, well, you'll feel right at home here on the Saturday 5. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. You know the drill, each host outlines their argument about a chosen topic, then we all pile in and the fur starts to fly. But of course, we want to know your views as well. Send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to ask your questions for our Ask the 5 segment, no topic, off limits. But folks, before we start tearing each other apart, it's time for your Saturday Night News with Sam Francis.
Darren, thank you very much, and good evening to you. It's just after 6 o'clock, and the top story from the newsroom tonight is that a 34-year-old man has now been arrested in connection with the investigation into human remains found in 2 suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. Armed police detained the man at Bristol Temple Meads train station, and he's now been taken to London for questioning. There had been a widespread manhunt across Bristol and the City of London in the wake of the discovery of the body parts, but police say they're now not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. Investigators, though, do believe the remains found at an address in Shepherd's Bush are linked to those found in those 2 suitcases in Bristol earlier this week. Racing commentator John Hunt, whose wife and 2 daughters were killed in a crossbow attack, says the family's devastation can't be put into words. John and his 3rd daughter, Amy, have thanked people for messages of support they've received since the women were targeted in their home in Hertfordshire on Tuesday. 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her 2 daughters, 25-year-old Louise and 28-year-old Hannah, died from their injuries. It comes as a 26-year-old man has now been arrested on suspicion of their murders. In the US, President Biden's insisting he'll keep fighting, telling supporters today he's not just standing as the Democratic candidate, but he'll also beat Donald Trump and win November's election. It comes after 2 standout mistakes at the NATO summit, where he referred to the Ukrainian president as President Putin and mixed up his own vice president with his election rival. But despite those 2 mistakes, the UK's new defence secretary has today defended Joe Biden's leadership of the NATO summit. John Healey, who joined the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer in Washington for the event, says Joe Biden's still got it.
You probably noticed there's a lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running, and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that.
Apologies there, that was not John Healey. That was, of course, Joe Biden speaking at a rally in Detroit earlier today. Well, an Israeli airstrike has targeted the mastermind behind the 7th of October attack, according to a security official there. But officials in Gaza say at least 71 Palestinians have been killed in the strike on a designated humanitarian area, they claim. Though Israel says the strike targeted the head of Hamas's military wing in an open area where there were only Hamas terrorists and no civilians. Alec Baldwin's manslaughter case has been dismissed by a judge nearly 3 years on from the death of Helena Hutchins on the set of the Western film Rust. The cinematographer was shot with a revolver that the Hollywood actor was using in rehearsals in 2021. The trial collapsed just 3 days into Baldwin's hearing in Santa Fe. It's the second time the case against the actor has been dismissed. He will now not be tried again.
The sanction of dismissal is the only warranted remedy. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and a mistrial would not be based upon manifest necessity. Further, the sanction of dismissal is warranted in this case.
World leaders and A-list celebrities are in Mumbai for the wedding of the son of Asia's richest man. The extravagant 4-day ceremony will cap a string of elaborate parties the Ambani family has hosted since March to celebrate the marriage. Former Prime Ministers Tony Blair and Boris Johnson are among Anat Ambani's guests. Royal news, and the Princess of Wales will attend the Wimbledon men's singles final tomorrow and present the trophy there. It will be her second public appearance since her cancer diagnosis was announced earlier this year and after she attended Trooping the Colour last month. Kate has been a patron of the All England Lawn and Tennis and Croquet Club since 2016. A major music festival has come to a dramatic halt after a fierce storm swept through the grounds and tore down a tent. Footage you can see here on screen that was filmed by witnesses shows the panic as the storm hit, with people rushing to leave and even abandoning some of their belongings. Star acts like James Blake, Skepta and Royal Blood were silenced as organisers at Slovakia's biggest music festival scrambled to evacuate the site. We now know of at least 34 people who've been taken to hospital with injuries, and the remaining 30,000 attendees have now been instructed to leave on special evacuation buses. And is it coming home? Well, England manager Gareth Southgate certainly thinks so, but he's admitted he wants England to win so much it hurts. That's as they face Spain in the Euro 2024 showdown on Sunday. They've reached the tournament's final for the second time in a row after being beaten by Italy on penalties in 2021. And ahead of tomorrow's match, even the King has asked the England squad to alleviate the blood pressure of the nation by avoiding any late drama in the finals. And thousands of fans have now arrived in Berlin, and it's certainly clear to say that they're enjoying the build-up.
Didn't even get to celebrate the goal. As soon as the second one went in on the phone straight away, right, quick, let's just book. We're from Birmingham, we had to get some from London.
Could be a chance of making history tomorrow. I was at the last final and we never won. I've been following England since 2012, and I just want to see them win something.
I hope that it does finally come home. We've waited a long time. I'm 44 now and hasn't been home in my lifetime. So I hope this time it comes home.
And we will, of course, be following the match tomorrow night here on GB News with the results for you, if you're not already watching. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis, back for another update at 7 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for a very lively hour. Let's crack on with tonight's first debate. I'm going to abuse position of the chair and lead us off in this segment. Now, Suella Braverman faces outrage from the Liberal Labour Party and the Liberal wing of the so-called Conservatives. Once again, what's new? Here's what she said. She said, "The progress flag screams one thing. Our government allowed the mutilation of children in hospitals. Too many Tory politicians insisted this flag must fly." And she added, "There are numerous whistleblower reports." This is my opinion, actually. There are numerous whistleblower reports from the NHS Tavistock Clinic showing that what she just said there can be seen as true, because there were children, some may be autistic, some may be gay, but all healthy, sacrificed, in my opinion, on the altar of this unchallenged and unchallengeable ideology in an age of the sort of stonewallisation of politics. Now, the Labour MP for me, Stella Creasy, called Braverman's comments bile. But I tell you what's bile. Labour MPs like Rosie Duffield been hounded for challenging Labour's stance that places trans rights above women's rights. Now, some demanded Braverman's expulsion from the Conservatives. Now, they'd need quite the list, I'd say, to go with her, because there are many in that party that agree. And I think that bizarre flag doesn't represent the LGB, and calling out this pride movement's alphabet asylum shouldn't be seen as career-ending and shouldn't be viewed as controversial as it has been this week. Now, I'm going to start with Madeline Grant as a newbie to the show and indeed to the panel. Now, Madeline, I assume you don't agree with the rhetoric used or the hyperbole, you might say it. Don't wish to put words into your mouth. You're perfectly capable of forming them yourself. But do you agree with the overall sentiment of what she's saying?
I think she said a lot of things that were true. But the trouble with Suella Braverman is that she often tends to... am I right in thinking that she said this abroad in America?
Yes.
She does have a habit of going and speaking to a kind of a foreign audience rather than a domestic one. And I think the problem with this is that we're having this very public falling out between different wings of the Conservative Party is, I would say, unhelpful to their chances of forming unity. And although I think she made a lot of very true points, I think there's a way of making those points without sounding... Because it allows your critics to misrepresent and attack you for what you said, however true it is. I think you have to be all the more careful with your language at a time when, you know, the left is definitely on the well, it has triumphed in the general election, and I think is often on the lookout for things that can be used against people on the right.
Renee, now as a doctor, I mean, you've expressed concerns about this very issue on this show before. Wes Streeting seems to be of the view that, you know, puberty blockers should be banned, if the reports are correct. We haven't had confirmation on that. I'm wondering, do you think actually Suella Braverman has won the argument?
I think, look, the argument's been won by lots of women in this arena who have been saying these things in various ways for quite some time, and they've been shut down. Unfortunately, the left are now trying to shut Suella down on this, and she has allowed them to do it by the language that she's used. Having said that, I think the people that have been upset by this will be the politicians around her and the left. I think if you go out onto the streets and talk to the average person, they'll say, damn right, she's saying what we feel.
I don't think the average person feels physically repulsed by a flag. You know, that is just an outrageous thing to say. Look, I don't like the Progress flag. I think there was nothing wrong with the original Gilbert Baker Pride flag. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. I hate the Progress flag.
Why do you hate it? Why?
It's ugly. There was no need for an update on the Pride flag because the original Pride flag included everyone and the different colours had different meanings. We don't need a stripe for black people, a stripe for brown people, a stripe for whatever. We don't need it. There was nothing wrong with the original flag. I don't like it. I don't go around going on national television saying I feel physically repulsed by a pride flag which represents a portion of the population in this country.
But
I think if you went around and you said, if someone said I'm physically repulsed by the Star of David, I'm physically repulsed by the Christian cross, I'm physically repulsed by the Islamic sickle, people would not accept it. So why is it acceptable for Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary of this country, potential future Tory leadership contender, why is it acceptable to anyone for her to say she's physically repulsed by a flag that represents people in this country?
Firstly, you're putting that flag on a pedestal with some very ancient religious symbolism. I don't think the two sit side by side. That's number one. I don't think you can compare them.
No.
And I think I've got a lot of gay friends who are repulsed by that flag.
Yeah.
They want nothing to do with it. They don't want it as part of their identity.
You think it's reasonable for a politician to say they're physically repulsed by a flag that represents people's identities?
I said she should have picked her words differently, but I think her sentiment will be recognised as meaningful to lots of people.
Benjamin, I mean, Wes Streeting in the Telegraph apparently banning puberty blockers and all these other things. You might disagree. You might agree with Renee that actually the language was wrong, but actually the messaging was right. I mean, do you think that's where Labour's at?
Well, I don't think Suella Braverman was actually talking about anything as specific as the health implications of puberty blockers.
Well, she said mutilation.
She was attacking a community, and you said in your remarks that it shouldn't be controversial. The only reason she is saying it and saying it in that way is because controversy is her currency. She hopes that she can try and do a sort of Boris Johnson act of being so outrageous and having all this grassroots right swings. No, but what she's trying to do is whip up these right-wing grassroots so that MPs feel pressured to put her through. It's not going to work. You know, quite frankly, the fact that when Parliament returned, she flew to America rather than doing what her job is for her constituents on day one, I think tells you where her priorities are. And she has proven that she is not qualified to run a country because one of the first responsibilities of being a leader is to bring people together. That includes people that don't sit easily with you. That is a job of leadership. And I bet you Suella Braverman will never see the inside of the cabinet room again because she won't get anywhere near being Conservative Party leader this year. And the version of the Conservative Party that one day wins a general election will not look anything like what Braverman is saying.
You might be right, but Keir Starmer didn't go very far to bring Rosie Duffield in and make her feel
the Kent MPs took a photograph, Madeleine,
I saw that.
and Rosie Duffield wasn't in it.
That's wrong. They took a photograph of the newly elected MPs, and she's not newly elected.
Well, I mean...
She was the only Kent MP before, wasn't she?
I mean,
so every Kent Labour MP took a picture apart from Rosie Duffield. That's what happened, isn't it?
There are so many examples of time.
Keir Starmer and chose to be a Labour MP, so clearly she doesn't have a fundamental problem with the Labour Party.
She's many times talked about how ostracised she's been made to feel and how no one has reached out to her, nobody has apologised to her. Like, I think that's not in doubt. And it's pretty bloody shameless that today, I think, or yesterday, Lisa Nandy said that we're putting an end to culture wars now, as if they've never had a hand in this themselves, as if this is always some invention of the right. You know, it really gets me. I think it's almost... I would almost go so far as to use the word gaslighting. Because we can see how Labour have engaged in culture wars. It's almost like if someone wants to tear down a statue, it's like, well, that's not a culture war. And if you're like, please don't tear down the statue, they're like, stop doing the culture war. You know, I'm so fed up with it. And it's been used... They've been using that framing all the time when it comes to trans.
There was a poll out this last week from More in Common of the issues that motivated people's decision of how to vote. Just 1% of people said transgender issues decided
But
their
that
vote.
doesn't mean that it's right to mutilate children, that does it? It's about what's good.
Right. But the point is that any party that obsesses over this is going to lose.
Okie dokie. Right, who's going to go next then?
I'm going to go next. I've got a bit of an unpopular opinion this week.
Well, there's nothing new.
The people on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, have been certainly telling me it's an unpopular opinion. The question is, should ex-convicts ever be allowed to become MPs? We saw reported by the Mail Online, I believe it was yesterday, that the Reform MP James McMurdoch actually served a jail sentence about 20 years ago because he attacked his then-girlfriend outside a club. And it's started an interesting moral question. Should people who have served their prison time, served their punishment, been rehabilitated, ever be allowed to serve in public office? Now, there are lots of different opinions on this. Some people think it's completely inappropriate for someone who has engaged in such criminality to become an MP. Other people, like myself, think that actually people deserve second chances and that someone who has completely turned their life around, got a well-paying job in the City of London, has children, has been married and has now become an MP rather than reoffended, actually should be given a second chance and deserves to be an MP, even if I think what he did was appalling and my thoughts and feelings are very much with the victim and her family. Benjamin Butterworth, what do you make of this? Do you think that we should ever be allowing criminals, particularly people who have been involved in domestic violence, violence against women and girls, male to female, are they fit to be MPs?
Well, the question is, are they rehabilitated? Are they the same person? Have they learned the lesson? You know, if you want to live in a society whereby your debt can never be paid for the mistake you made, well, then we're going to live in a pretty hopeless society. What he did is utterly appalling, and it's something that the vast majority of us wouldn't need to learn by going to prison, that you don't beat people, women or anyone else. But it was 20 years ago, and from the comments he's made, he clearly has not repeated this action. There's no record of him behaving like that since. He says he regrets it, and he now, by the time sounds of it, has a well-paid job and a happy family. And so that, for me, is what you want in society. You want people to learn the lessons. And I actually think the attitude that says... So, for example, in the Labour Party, the vetting of who could be a candidate was extremely strict. The tiniest of things got people blocked because they were nervous about what would happen. And, you know, some of that is good. You want a high quality of MPs from all parties. But the idea that someone could have made a serious mistake and that bars them from opportunity forever, I think is a shame. You know, both of my parents have been to prison. My mother has been to prison. She was a heroin addict for many years. She was extremely unwell. And now she is a functioning, contributing, tax-paying member of society. And she was on the wrong path for most of her adult life. The idea that she should have been denied opportunity. And in fact, a couple of years ago, she got a job in a primary school as a cleaner, and they found out about that she'd been to prison, and they took the job off her. Now, this is 10 years, 15 years after she'd been to prison. I think that's a reprehensible way for a society to behave.
Renee, some people really are quite exercised by this. I was reading a response to my tweet from Rebecca Reid, obviously friend of the channel. She said she'd be inclined to agree, but his statement is, "I'm not sorry, bingo," she says. He points out that she was drunk, accuses people of lying in the situation and uses the words teenage indiscretion. Rebecca Reid says these are all from the Abusive Man Handbook. Do you have any sympathy with that?
No, none at all. It was still 20 years ago. He was a teenager. He did wrong, you know, we know that, and what he did was absolutely awful. But as everybody has said around here, he has gone on to prove that he can contribute to society, be a respectable guy. I just don't think we can hang people by their past if they've now reformed.
Yeah, all right. We're going to have to leave that there. I've got some comments I'll read out after the break on that issue, though. But still to come tonight, folks, Labour has banned new North Sea oil drilling. Is that a smart, sustainable move or economic suicide? Plus, the Democrats are reportedly plotting to oust Joe Biden before November's US presidential election. Are his days numbered, and who would they choose to replace him? You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
No one wants their child to be a fussy eater. But what is the secret to expanding your child's culinary horizons?
Is there a way to get kids away from the kids' menu, the fish fingers, the chips? Joining us now is the UK's top-selling author of children's cookery books, Annabelle Carmel. Good morning, Annabelle.
Thank you. So lovely to be here.
So, first of all, what's the issue with kids just having the traditional easy meals like fish fingers, you know, chips, beans?
It really depends if they've got preservatives in them, if they're full of salt. So I like to make them myself, and it's really easy. So I make my own chicken glazed nuggets, and super easy to make using proper pieces of chicken. You can cook them in the air fryer now, which is absolutely brilliant, so you need to fry them. And I think that it's really important that children grow up loving good food, because they make their minds up by the age of 5 what they like and what they don't like, and it's quite difficult to change their minds after that. But it's good to know that fussy eating is genetic. It's not to do with your cooking.
Oh,
that's not to say that you can't do something about it. So I've written many, many books, and I have an app with 1,000 recipes on it, and a lot of how to make your own junk food, how to make your own isolis out of fresh fruit.
Yes.
How to make your own pizzas. I make the most amazing homemade pizza. I actually brought you some cookies here.
Okay, so these are your books here. So my first cookbook, that's for how old children?
That's from the age of 1.
OK, and you've got a weaning one at the end, the baby one?
Yes, that's my very first book. I lost my first child. It was really sad. She died at the age of 3 months. And my second child was the world's worst eater. And I wrote that book as my legacy to Natasha, never thinking that it would start a whole career.
Oh, bless you.
It sold millions of copies, and it's so popular.
Is it quite pivotal and important that you introduce kids to the weaning stage, or, you know, how important?
It's very important, because the processed weaning food in pouches or jars, it's heated, so a lot of the vitamins aren't there anymore, so making your own is so easy and much cheaper.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your emails about tonight's topics. Now, one viewer, Catherine, says, well done, Benjamin. People like your mother deserve that chance. I'm glad she's recovered. Well done to her. So, you know, a sign there that actually redemption and all those important messages a key tenet, really, of the Christian faith are still very much respected.
Maybe viewers will one day forgive me for being so woke.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. Irredeemable.
There has to be some contrition first.
We did have one viewer called Claire who says, how can a misogynistic girlfriend beater be allowed in Parliament? Absolutely no way. Women are half the population. He won't be speaking for me. So there are forthright views on both sides. I do think as a society, though, we are getting a little bit too unable to forgive people, perhaps. But it's time for our next debate. Who's going to go next?
And it's me next. Thank you for that introduction, President Putin. Now, Joe Biden has had another tumultuous week. He managed to mess up the names, a bit like I just did there, between the leader of Ukraine calling him President Putin. I think we've got a clip of that now.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Ooh, it really makes you squirm. It is painful to see what's happening in recent years. But I still think Joe Biden has been a great president. They've got pretty low inflation, they've got record employment numbers, and the US economic growth has been in a league that we Brits can only dream of. However, he's clearly losing the plot a little bit. Now, as my lookalike, George Clooney, said earlier this week, it's time for a new nominee. I think Donald Trump is a much bigger threat to the West, to America, to our security against people like President Putin. He doesn't just say the wrong name, he backs Putin half the time. But that's why I think Joe Biden needs to go. And actually, I think Donald Trump, if the Republicans had any self-respect, they'd get rid of him too, because they're both past it. Now, Darren, I imagine you rather like the US fascist Donald Trump. What do you make of all this?
Look, well, I don't think he's a fascist, for one, and I don't think President Trump is losing his marbles. I mean,
I don't think he had them in the first place. So
Joe Biden keeps saying, oh, I'm running. I mean, I don't know where, but hopefully to a care home somewhere nice and friendly. Because, look, I'm unlike you, Benjamin, I do not have a problem with old people, right? I quite like old people. I think they're wise and we ought to respect them more. But I don't think we ought to make some of them President of the United States of America. I think he's clearly not up to it. I think President Trump is more with it. I think President Trump, by the way, is playing a blinder right now. Guess why? He's keeping his gob shut. And I think that's the perfect strategy. He's letting the Democrats completely collapse. They are collapsing. They're going to end up, I think, fighting like rats in a sack. It's going to look like Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. That's what I think it will. Well, I guess that's the consequences you get when they take over places like San Francisco, dare I say. That's what it's going to look like. And
who do you want to be the nominee instead of Joe Biden?
Well, this is the question they have. So I think Joe Biden has said to aides this week that either find somebody who is more likely to win than me or I'm staying. I think his ego has got the better of him.
Who could that be?
Well, the person it would probably be would be the governor of California, Gavin Newsom.
Because California's in such a good state.
But I think he's someone experienced. But there's also a guy called Pete Buttigieg, who's a war veteran, a Harvard graduate, who's exceptionally clever, but he's only about 40, so probably a little bit young to be president. But look, what do you think, Albie? Because you know what it's like to have a party tearing itself apart at the hands of a hopeless leader. Name 3 of them.
Clinton was 46, by the way.
Who do I think
was
should
42,
be...
Well, that didn't end well.
Kamala Harris, is that how you pronounce it? I always find her quite an interesting character. She, I think, has become a little bit more presidential since Joe Biden's been having all of his trouble, but she seems to be quite unpopular with the American public. It does just seem a shame that Joe Biden essentially said he wanted to be a bridge president when he became the president of the United States, or a bridge leader, something like that.
A bridge to the future.
Where's that bridge going? I mean, the bridge is about to collapse. And it doesn't seem to be that there's anything on the other side.
Joe seems to think he's the saviour now, doesn't he? He seems to think he's the only
Or does Jill?
Or Jill, that can save America. They've got a big problem, actually, whoever, whether it's Gavin Newsom or the other bloke, because Kamala's not going to just step aside. She really isn't.
And why should she? She's the vice president.
Yeah, and she's making noises that
I think you'll find her name's Vice President Trump.
She's making noises that the black vote in America would be very disappointed if a white guy was, you know, put in there. So I think they've got big problems, whichever way they go.
Well, I find it really distressing to watch Joe Biden as he is now. I mean, I've had in my family Alzheimer's has been a feature of our life, and I've seen people decline. And, it's heartbreaking, actually, that they've been allowing this poor man to be put out there and humiliated repeatedly. Someone who, I may not agree with him, but he has served his country as a congressman for decades, since the 70s, I think, or perhaps even earlier than that. And he deserves better than this. Why have the people around him not intervened? Because it seems destructive for the Democrat Party and for him personally. And I also think that Benjamin talked about what a successful president he's been. It's really hard to say that he's been successful when we actually have no idea who is running the country. It's because it ain't Joe Biden. He's not capable of that. It's very obvious.
Just to put in context how long he's been around, there is a brilliant black and white photograph of leader of the opposition, Margaret Thatcher, meeting Congressman Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah.
That's how long he's been
I heard
involved.
a wonderful fact on this bit.
Very
I think
briefly.
he's currently, I think the year that he was born, it was closer to one of Lincoln's inauguration speeches than the last one he did.
Oh, my word.
He's a third as old as the US itself.
Goodness gracious.
Blimey.
Right. Still to come tonight with Caitlin Moran, the columnist getting hot under the collar. We'll be discussing if journalists have been sucking up to the new Labour government a little bit too much. But next, Ed Miliband, the new Energy Secretary, has issued an immediate ban on new North Sea oil drilling. Is this sensible or stark raving mad? You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. After a largely cloudy first half of the weekend, we do still have some outbreaks of rain to contend with into this evening and overnight, particularly for the Scottish borders and to Northumberland towards the North York Moors. There could be some heavy pulses at times, so do take care if you are travelling here. Elsewhere, it is a largely dry night, some clear spells, for particularly Northern Ireland down towards southern areas of England and Wales, where here we could see rural temperatures drop down into single figures. Most of our towns and cities, though, will be holding up in double digits as we start off Sunday morning. But really the best and the brightest of the conditions first thing, very likely to be across the southern portion of the nation. Actually quite a decent amount of sunshine here first thing, and a very nice start to the second half of the weekend. Still got that expansive cloud and rain outbreaks across northern England, but Northern Ireland seeing some bright spots, and actually parts of central Scotland into Argyll and Bute and the Southern Highlands not faring too badly either. The far northeast of Scotland, though, much cloudier with some drizzle, murky conditions around, particularly along coastal areas as we see that northerly feed of air filter in that cloud. The rain across southern Scotland into northern England will gradually ease a bit and turn lighter as we head throughout the day, generally turning patchier, but it is going to be cloudy and fairly dull and dreary still throughout a good portion of the day. I'm feeling quite cool underneath that, still temperatures only around 15 to 17 degrees Celsius. Elsewhere in the sunnier spots, parts of central Scotland down towards southern England and Wales, we could see 21, 23 degrees Celsius, so a bit more pleasant and a bit warmer here. If you're hoping that the new week would bring something a bit more summery, I'm afraid I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, because we've got another area of low pressure arriving from the southwest on Monday. This will be bringing bands of showers, some of those looking like they could be heavy, with some thunderstorms, even some hail in the mixture as well, pushing into southern areas of England and Wales. The northern half of the UK seeing the brightest, probably best of the conditions first thing on Monday, so certainly for northern England it will be a much better start to the day compared to what we've seen over the weekend, but staying unsettled throughout next week. Bye-bye.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
A very warm welcome back to the Saturday 5. Thank you very much for your messages on gbnews.com/your say. Josh, who's a member of GB News, thank you very much, Josh, asks, can you ask Benjamin Butterworth how exactly Trump is a fascist?
Well, I think he has a penchant for dictators, and he has said that he would like to rule like a dictator if he's returned. He put that on record, an insane thing to say, and I think the West should be terrified.
January 6th.
Well, I mean, I would heavily disagree with that, and I imagine many viewers would as well. Right, but Bunderchuk on the gbnews.com/your say has very nice words to say about Benjamin. She says, my heart goes out to him. I see him in a different light now. He makes a very relevant point. But trust me, the authorities never let you forget your past. And in many cases, the last thing you want is for you to move on with your life. Anyone who has been in trouble will often get harassed for the rest of their life by people who take great pleasure in it. And I do wonder if that's a really salient point, that actually we've forgotten all semblance of forgiveness, right? And I do worry about that. I really, really do. But then Fitz says, Benjamin, totally wrong. The sooner Trump is in the White House, the absolute better for the world.
I think I agree.
I agree too.
Well, look, there's one convict that I don't think should be in high office. We want conviction politicians, not convicted politicians.
Oh.
That was good.
Here's one I prepared earlier.
Yeah. How long did that take? Right, it's time now for our next debate. Who's going to go next?
Oh, that'll be me.
Oh.
So I would like to introduce to the world the new Energy Security and Net Zero Minister. The grown-ups are back in the room. Just remember that, guys. Here is Ed Miliband.
So my friend is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. So here I am on the latest stage of my GB Energy Tour.
Isn't it just wonderful? So this week he came out of the blocks running towards the net zero madness, that goal of 2030, possibly 2050, who knows, it changes all of the time. Straight away, with the sweep of his pen, he decided he would ban all new oil and gas drilling licences in the North Sea, fracking forever, no one's ever allowed to do that. And then he went against all of the recommendations and agreed that a 2,500 acre site in the heart of the Cambridgeshire countryside could be bombarded and covered with solar panels and battery packs, which will look hideous, kill the biodiversity, is dangerous, inefficient, and that land will never be able to be returned to agriculture. Now, let's just think about this. 8% of the world's energy last year came from renewables. So we actually are so far away from using renewables as our source of energy. But yet in the UK, we can't strive to be self-sufficient. We now will have to buy, as we did last year, most of our oil and gas from America, who are self-sufficient because the grown-ups are in the room there. That's why their economy is booming. We'll ship our carbon offset over there, let them have our footprint. We'll pay extra to bring in our oil and gas just to keep the lights on. So Ed has decided that no, we are going to jump out of the plane and hopefully invent the parachute on the way down. And as we hurtle towards the ground, we're going to plunge people into unemployment, poverty, ill health and cold. And Ed just thinks it's the right thing to do. And I think when he leaves office, all he'll be able to do is leave a note that said, would the last person to leave please blow out their candle?
Well, Renee, well said. Very well said. That was quite the tour de force. I wish Wallace would go back to his Wensleydale and leave the sodding country alone, to be perfectly flat. I don't know if I can say that word at 6 o'clock. I do apologise if anyone's deeply offended by mine. But Patricia's written in, I want to put this to Benjamin Butterworth. Patricia says, Miliband is stark raving mad and should be stopped immediately. We are sitting on valuable reserves of oil and gas, coal, and contribute little to emissions, yet this idiot wants to put us all in the dark. He was rejected previously as Prime Minister, of course. So why is he back and allowed to do this? Absolutely dreadful. He should never, ever have been given any job at all.
Well, by the same token, you could say William Hague shouldn't have been Foreign Secretary, you know.
Well, William Hague wasn't mad.
That's, well, clearly the public disagreed with you in 2001. But look, you know, well, first of all, they're not quite banning new oil and gas because we're already in the middle of a round of applications which will probably go forward and produce billions.
Yeah, but that's the
There's
question mark,
been a lack of clarity about that.
But anything new subsequent to that isn't going to happen. So it's not quite as as harsh as maybe it was presented at first. But look, you know, the fact is that we can't continue to rely on oil. It's not a sustainable way for us to be. We need to have other things. We're an island. Wind power, solar power is massively beneficial and will be much cheaper in the longer run. It's also the case that as a highly educated economy, we can lead the way on a green revolution. And so I think we should lean into our education sector. And the other thing I'd say is that countries like Saudi Arabia, which are heavily leaning away from their oil supplies in how they're building their economy, they're not just doing that because it might run out. It probably won't run out for quite a long time. They're doing it because they know that the world economy wants greener solutions, and we should be at the forefront of that.
But they're not actually even green, because actually the International Renewable Energy Agency said that by 2050, the disposal of worn-out solar panels and wind turbines will be double the tonnage of all of the plastic in the world today. They're not that green in the long term.
We have to get Madeline Grant, because Madeline Grant, if viewers didn't see it, grimaced throughout Benjamin Butterworth's remarks.
I'm sorry. Very rude of me. I have an uncontrollable facial expression.
Oh, no, I loved it. I applauded it, yeah.
Well, basically, I despise this kind of, I think, very virtue signalling purity, essentially, because we are not ready yet. A lot of what Benjamin said, I mean, I agree, it's a worthy idea in theory, but the reality is that we are still so far off being able to divest ourselves completely of fossil fuels. So why would we shoot ourselves in the foot by also divesting ourselves of a load of very well-paid, highly skilled jobs, a slap in the face for Scotland, a massive slap in the face for Scotland this would be, when the new technology isn't ready yet at all. So we would continue to export it from other countries, but not take advantage of our own reserves. It strikes me as shooting ourselves in the foot so that Ed Miliband can feel like a big, important statesman on the world stage and hold his head up high at the next COP summit.
Exactly, but Renee...
As he plays that song.
Renee, I'm afraid, you know, Albie's a fan of Ed and his banjo.
No, I'm not. I was about to say, can we just talk about that awful video that we watched? Like, I mean, I appreciate all the very intelligent points everyone has made, but I am sorry. Politicians should not be singing or playing musical instruments for videos on TikTok or social media if they can't actually sing or play a musical instrument. I just thought it was terrible. I don't want to see that. I don't want to hear it. He tried to do a trick at the end. I just don't like it. And I'm not anti-net zero. Actually, I find the position of net zero fanatics and the position of you who is against building energy infrastructure, which you don't like, somewhere in Cambridgeshire, actually, I think they're two sides of the same coin, to be honest, because we need more energy infrastructure in this country.
But we don't have
whether that's renewables, oil and gas or nuclear. That's what we need to build. People shouldn't be opposing solar panels or wind farms. They shouldn't be opposing oil and gas, and they shouldn't be opposing nuclear.
Briefly, Renee?
Right, the reason that this solar panel farm was actually rejected so many times is because it actually very clearly says the benefits do not outweigh all of the risks that it brings to that area. So, yes, let's look at the benefits and risks, but just like medication, Albie, don't take it if it's going to do you more harm than good.
And are renewables going to do us more harm than good?
These ones are. They're going to damage the biodiversity. They are a fire risk. The local fire authority don't want it there.
You sound like a Green Party politician opposing nuclear. Everyone's got a problem with everything. We just need to get building.
All right, we'll have to leave that one there. Thank you very much, Renee. Janet says, completely agree, Renee, but Darren, do not insult that fine figure of a man that is Wallace of Wallace and Gromit fame. So I do apologise,
Oh,
Janet.
very good, Janet.
Right, still to come tonight. Should MPs be allowed to protest taking the oath of allegiance to the Crown? But right after the break, we'll be discussing why the media have been sucking up to Labour, getting all hot under the collar. It's quite disgusting. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Khloe Kardashian has come under fire after posting a picture of her 6-year-old daughter wearing a full face of makeup.
Yeah, the reality TV star said the youngster was participating in a dance recital and that wasn't an everyday occurrence.
So this morning we're asking, is it ever OK to let children wear makeup?
Well, joining us now is journalist Julie Cook. So, Julie, it's a child wearing full rouge, bright red lipstick, hair tied back, looking very, very stylised, very much, I think, like a young adult. Is this really the sort of thing we should be doing with small children?
Oh, I think it's absolutely fine. I mean, first of all, in Khloe Kardashian's case, it was a dance recital, so it was very much a kind of performance element to it. She said herself in her post, it wasn't something they do every day. She was taking part in a dance activity. So, you know, I think she's vindicated on that front. But I've let my daughter play with makeup since she was 3. When she was 3, she showed a distinct interest in my makeup palettes, going through my stuff. She's 10 now, and while I don't let her wear a full face like a drag queen, I do let her wear, you know, a bit of mascara on a weekend if she wants to. I don't see any harm in it.
Clearly, if you're a child of a Kardashian who's paid millions of dollars to endorse cosmetics, you know, that's part of the fabric of their family. My concern, though, Julie, is putting those pictures on social media where people can see them. We live in an age now where, you know, wrong-uns are scouring the internet all the time.
A lot of girls do enjoy putting makeup on. It's almost like a self-expression thing. It's like painting on a canvas. They're just trying to be a bit artistic. I don't think it's necessarily as sort of sinister as we're making out. And I think as long as you're not posting pictures everywhere or putting them at risk of harm, I don't see any danger.
The People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your emails about tonight's topics. Wendy says, Darren, we desperately need to spend money on cleaning up our rivers and the sea, along with building more reservoirs to cope with our open borders. Right. How can it be more sensible to spend billions on wind turbines and solar panels than cleaning up our environment? Net zero is about vested interests. Well, Benjamin, declare your interests. He wishes. Now, though, it's time for our next debate. Making her debut, it's none other than Madeline Grant. Take it away, Madeline.
Amazing. Well, so I've decided for my debate to choose a rather baffling phenomenon that I have noticed in the news in the all of 8 days since Keir Starmer won his smacking great landslide last week. British journalists have been really struggling to disguise their glee. When Keir Starmer, the new Prime Minister, went over to Washington for the NATO summit, he was absolutely bombarded with questions of the why are you the greatest Prime Minister we've ever had variety. There were people who were asking him, have you got used to calling yourself Prime Minister yet? All this sort of thing. The broadcaster Andrew Marr made some rather extraordinary remarks on the Question Time, which I think I guess it must have been the day after or moments after the election, and he said that for the first time in many people's lives, Britain had suddenly been transformed into an oasis of calm and stability, which seems like rather high praise for someone who had been in charge for maybe, I don't know, an hour or two at that point. And then from the proper, simple toadying to something even more inexplicable, there has even been a certain amount of thirst emanating from certain sections of the press. The journalist Caitlin Moran, writing in The Times, wrote an extraordinary column where she talked about how Keir Starmer had turbocharged her arousal levels and how she and her friends all fancy Keir Starmer, and there's something about his competence that he exudes that is just so devilishly sexy. the reason I bring all of this up is because, firstly, I cannot imagine similar scenes playing out for the previous administration. You know, I mean, sometimes the Daily Express gets criticised for being too pro-Boris, but it's almost as if the entire journalistic landscape has turned into cheerleaders for Keir Starmer. And also, can a media cohort that is clearly this thirsty and therefore certifiable really hold the government to account properly, as you would expect?
For our older viewers, can you just explain what thirsty means?
Oh, sorry. It means, I don't know what I'm allowed to say. It's horny. There we go. I've said it.
That's fine. Look, Maddie, I'm sorry, but you sound like a sore loser. You know, the fact is...
What, just because she's not
I don't fancy Keir Starmer.
I think...
That's an outrageous thing to say.
I think Sir Keir and Lady Starmer are a particularly attractive couple. They look very
She
is.
Now you're certifiable. I mean, she's gorgeous,
glamorous.
don't get me wrong, but him, I'm not
There's a beautiful photograph when they were at the White House on the balcony, and they look incredibly glamorous together. And also, they look madly in love, which is, you know, much better than can be said for some
He
couples
sounds
in
like
politics.
Caitlin Moran, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
I think Keir
and
Starmer's
also,
a very
I'm
handsome
sorry,
man.
this is not to do with being a sore loser. I think the Conservative Party got deservedly spanked and they deserved it. I'm not suggesting that this was unfair or anything like this. What I am suggesting is that you need to see a bit of consistency and also a bit of journalistic integrity. And frankly, I don't think that in previous decades you would have had broadcasters asking the kind of softball questions to the Prime Minister. You can't imagine like Maurice Stewart in the 90s being like, have you got used to calling yourself Prime Minister?
It's absolutely understandable that you want to know what it's like for someone to take that job on. That's human interest. And I would just point
reality
out,
TV is what it is.
It's not new that people are having these thoughts or reporting these thoughts about a Prime Minister. He was called Dishy Rishi when he was Chancellor.
I didn't read anything quite of the first levels of Caitlin Moran's column.
You didn't have, you know, Isabel Oakeshott or, dare I say, Madeline Grant writing how, you know, Dishy Rishi makes her want to, I don't know.
Well, luckily he doesn't, so you wouldn't have read that from me.
I mean, look, I found the whole thing bizarre, not least because I find him really a most unattractive man. He's not tall enough, that's the end of that for me. But I think it's not the point. I think your point is absolutely right, Madeline. How can we take our journalists seriously when we know that they're secretly just sitting there fawning and, you know, thinking, oh, I wish? It's absolutely ridiculous. And I also think that if this was the other way round, if this was male journalists talking about a female Prime Minister, there'd be outrage that it was misogynistic claptrap.
And Susan says, Madeline is great. Any woman that thinks Starmer is sexy needs an eye test. The shallow press are a disgrace to this country.
Gosh.
Do you think they're a disgrace?
I mean, what a strong opinion. Look, I think there are different sections of the press that blow smoke up different parts of politicians in the political spectrum.
Are they overwhelmingly anti-conservative, though?
Well, no, because I think about one of your colleagues at The Telegraph, Maddie, a chap called Alistair Heath, who I think I just read some of his stuff sometimes and I think, God, this is just so overly complimentary. For example, of Liz Truss's mini-budget, he described it as the best budget ever. It was not the best budget
he didn't
ever.
go about how much
by any stretch of the imagination.
But
so all I'm saying is...
he didn't say, I can't wait to take her home.
No, that would have been too much. But the point that I'm making is...
that's my point.
That different sections of the media compliment different types of politicians, and why are we getting angry? Are we getting angry because it's Keir Starmer and not Suella Braverman?
When
like,
Alistair Heath
reason?
wrote that rather ill-fated column about the Liz Truss budget, when the budget imploded, he was mocked and ridiculed for that column. He got it in the neck from everybody, whereas I think this stuff is really getting a free pass because there are so many of them at it and asking stupid questions about the football and also acting like at this early stage in his career we can actually say whether he's competent or has been an effective Prime Minister. He's been doing it for 8 days.
And what I would say, that fawning shot of them on the Prime Minister's official plane, you know, the Royal Air Force plane that the royal family also use, and they're sort of looking over him, and it looks like one of those sort of Rembrandt paintings or something like that.
I said this in my sketch. I said it looked like
I'm
a
sorry,
caravan.
I wasn't stealing
we've
your...
had the great idea. We have great minds, great minds.
But read Maddie's piece in The Telegraph. But, you know, I just sort of thought, where's that accountability going to be? Where's that media scrutiny going to be? We're not going to get it from people, journalists like Benjamin Butterworth. I'll tell you that much.
There are endless photographs of Prime Ministers on that plane with journalists huddled around them like that. I think the fact is that, you know, you need to accept that Britain is actually quite relieved to have a competent, decent...
Where was Harry Cullen?
All right, we'll leave that there, though. We're going to take a quick break and then we've got our big guest interview. You'll find out who that is and the future of the Conservative Party, and we'll do Ask the Five. See you then.
I'm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. After a largely cloudy first half of the weekend, we do still have some outbreaks of rain to contend with into this evening and overnight, particularly for the Scottish borders and to Northumberland towards the North York Moors. There could be some heavy pulses at times, so do take care if you are travelling here. Elsewhere, it is a largely dry night, some clear spells for particularly Northern Ireland down towards southern areas of England and Wales, where here we could see rural temperatures drop down into single figures. Most of our towns and cities, though, will be holding up in double digits as we start off Sunday morning. But really the best and the brightest of the conditions first thing, very likely to be across the southern portion of the nation. Actually quite a decent amount of sunshine here first thing, and a very nice start to the second half of the weekend. Still got that expansive cloud and rain outbreaks across northern England, but Northern Ireland seeing some bright spots, and actually parts of central Scotland into Argyll and Bute and the Southern Highlands not faring too badly either. The far northeast of Scotland, though, much cloudier with some drizzle, murky conditions around, particularly along coastal areas as we see that northerly feed of air filter in that cloud. The rain across southern Scotland into northern England will gradually ease a bit and turn lighter as we head throughout the day, generally turning patchier, but it is going to be cloudy and fairly dull and dreary still throughout a good portion of the day. And feeling quite cool underneath that, still temperatures only around 15 to 17 degrees Celsius. Elsewhere in the sunnier spots, parts of central Scotland down towards southern England and Wales, we could see 21, 23 degrees Celsius, so a bit more pleasant and a bit warmer here. If you're hoping that the new week would bring something a bit more summery, I'm afraid I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, because we've got another area of low pressure arriving from the southwest on Monday. This will be bringing bands of showers, some of those looking like they could be heavy, with some thunderstorms, even some hail in the mixture as well, pushing into southern areas of England and Wales. The northern half of the UK seeing the brightest, probably best of the conditions first thing on Monday, so certainly for northern England it will be a much better start to the day compared to what we've seen over the weekend, but staying unsettled throughout next week. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm joined now by Stefan Kyriasis to give us the latest on everything theatre.
So, yeah, we're going in first with Starlight Express, which is back. It's not in the West End. It's out at Wembley at the Troubadour Theatre, which is a big, almost kind of warehouse space, which suits because, as you know, have you seen the show?
Starlight Express was my first ever musical. I must have been about 7 or 8 years old. I only saw it once, but I remember it being magical.
Well, this one, it's 1984 it started, and it's still running in Bochum in Germany in a huge arena. So basically what we've got, they've slightly tweaked it, and there's a little boy or little girl, depending on the cast, going to bed, obsessed with toy trains and dreaming of trains. Everybody is dressed up. To me, it looks like a cross between Tron and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I don't really think any of them look remotely like a train, but hey, the songs are Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's pop mixed with kind of cod 1950s rock and roll, some power ballads. The lyrics are politely like something out of an old speak and spell machine or something, you know. He's a steam train, they're out of date, he's being bullied by the diesel and the electric, and he falls for this carriage, the first-class carriage, new girl Pearl, and he wants to impress her, so he enters a race, and that's pretty much it. And when the races happen, all these barriers come up around where we're sitting, the lights are flashing, the music's thumping. It's utterly ridiculous, and I felt like a kind of teenager that was huffing sherbet dib-dabs off a giant block of sugar. It's so much fun, and the really crucial thing about it all is that somehow, in the middle of all of that, I just felt myself getting into the story. And when Pearl and Rusty have their little duet, I was very moved. And there's this big starlight sequence, which is the inspiration, the magical starlight that he's seeking. It's beautiful.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes along with Albie Corner, Madeline Grant, Dr Renee and Benjamin Butterworth. Plenty more to come tonight, including after Clive Lewis made a Republican protest while swearing the oath to His Majesty the King, we ask if this sort of thing should really be allowed. Docky's pay, I say. It's 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Still to come tonight, we'll be discussing if MPs should be allowed to make protests when swearing that oath of allegiance to the Crown. Plus, you get to ask us, the Saturday 5, your questions. gbnews.com/your say is the link you need. Then send them... Yeah, I've already said that bit. First of all, though, it's your Saturday Night News with Sam Francis.
Darren, thanks very much and good evening to you. It's just after 7 o'clock and we'll start with some sport news for you. Is it coming home? Well, Gareth Southgate certainly thinks so, and he's even admitted he wants England to win the Euro final on Sunday so much it hurts. And we can now cross live, in fact, to Berlin, where the England manager and captain Harry Kane are currently holding a news conference. Let's listen in for a few seconds.
Is a sign of the vision, really, when you're trying to create dreams. You've got to have a clear picture of what you want to see at the end of it, and you know, we then break that vision. Okay, this is where we want to go, and these are the details that have to be right across the last 2 years, and the improvements that we needed to make as a team. So I think that lights a small fire for some people. For others, it's different. So you're trying to affect the whole group in different ways. But we know what it would mean to everybody at home. We know what it would mean to us as a squad, the hard work that's gone in, not just this group of players, but players that have been with us for the last 6 or 7 years who've played a massive part in this journey with us, and all of the staff that have been involved. It's really been a huge team effort. All of those people have helped create the culture that we have, and yeah, we would love to give everybody a special night again tomorrow.
A question for Harry, Pierre from newspaper L'Equipe. Harry, did you think these last 2 hours about in which extent your career and maybe your life could change if you lift the trophy tomorrow?
Yeah, I think you try not to think too much about that side of it. You know, it's, of course, I know what it'd mean to me, and I know what it'd mean to our country if we won the final. So of course you have that in your mind, and you use that as motivation to try and be successful tomorrow. But yeah, I think it's hard because, you know, when we're here and we've been away, you're kind of in your own bubble, you're kind of in your own environment, and of course you see the videos and you see the fans when you arrive to games. But I think it's really hard to tell, you know, yeah, what's going on back in England. But I'm sure it's fantastic to be a part of. So yeah, from my point of view, it's more just, you know. I'm extremely excited for the opportunity to, you know, make a lot of people, including myself, happy tomorrow night. And yeah, it's going to be a big battle. So we're going to give it everything we got. And you know, at midnight tomorrow night or whenever the game will finish, you know, we really hope to be the team that's bring a trophy to England.
Harry Kane there saying he is excited ahead of tomorrow's final and hoping that the trophy can come home. And Gareth Southgate just moments before that saying he hopes England's footballers can bring happiness to our nation by winning their first major competition. It would be in almost 60 years. Well, ahead of tomorrow's match, the King has asked the England squad to alleviate the blood pressure of the nation by avoiding any late drama in the final. And thousands of fans have already arrived in Berlin and they're clearly enjoying the build-up.
Didn't even get to celebrate the goal. As soon as the second one went in on the phone straight away, right, quick, let's just book. We're from Birmingham, we had to get some from London.
Could be a chance of making history tomorrow. I was at the last final and we never won. I've been following England since 2012 and I just want to see them win something.
I hope that it does finally come home. We've waited a long time. I'm 44 now and hasn't been home in my lifetime. So I hope this time it comes home.
Well, away from the anticipation of tomorrow's match, armed police have made what they call a significant arrest after the remains of two men were discovered in a pair of suitcases. The 34-year-old man was detained at Bristol Temple Mead Station, not far from where that luggage was dumped at Clifton Suspension Bridge on Wednesday. Other body parts have now also been found at a property in Shepherd's Bush in West London. Racing commentator John Hunt, whose wife and two daughters were killed in a crossbow attack, says the family's devastation can't be put into words. John and his third daughter Amy have thanked people for their messages of support since the women were targeted in their home on Tuesday. 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her two daughters, Louise and Hannah, died from their injuries. It comes as a 26-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder. In the US, President Biden's insisting he'll keep fighting and told supporters today he's not just standing as the Democratic candidate, but he'll also win against Donald Trump in November's election. It comes after two standout mistakes, though, at the NATO summit, where he referred to the Ukrainian president as President Putin and also mixed up his own vice president with his election rival. But despite those two mistakes, the UK's new Defence Secretary has defended Joe Biden's leadership of the NATO summit. John Healey, who joined the Prime Minister in Washington for the event, says Joe Biden's still got it.
You probably noticed there's a lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that.
An Israeli airstrike has targeted the mastermind behind the 7th of October attacks, according to a security official there. Meanwhile, officials in Gaza say at least 71 Palestinians have been killed in that strike on what they claim was a designated humanitarian area. But Israel said the strike only targeted the head of Hamas's military wing in an open area where there were only Hamas terrorists and no civilians. Barbara Krejcikova. I said I needed to practice that name. She has been crowned Women's Wimbledon champion today with a 3-set victory over Jasmine Polini. In a second Grand Slam title for the Czech player, she won the French Open in 2021. Both were playing their first Wimbledon final, and it's now the 7th year in a row there's been a new women's champion. I'll get that right for the next one. A major music festival has come to a dramatic halt after a fierce storm swept through the grounds and tore down a tent. Footage filmed, you can see here, by witnesses shows panic as the storm hit, with people rushing to leave and abandoning their belongings. Star acts like James Blake and Royal Blood were silenced as organisers at Slovakia's biggest festival tried to evacuate the site. At least 34 people have been taken to hospital. The remaining attendees have been evacuated. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis. Another update with the correct names for tennis players at 8 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes. Unfortunately, I don't have to pronounce Polish. What was it? Polish tennis players? I see. Yes, that's it. Well done. Sam Francis will be back later on and he will pronounce it correctly. Now, I can promise folks you're in for yet another lively interview because we're going to crack on now with tonight's big interview. Now, when Clive Lewis, the Labour MP for Norwich South, had to swear an oath of allegiance to the King as Parliament opened, he decided to make a little protest. Let's have a listen.
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic. Until that time, I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles.
Well, 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 I mean, to be honest with you, I think he ought to be aware that he's no longer at the National Union of Students, and that is indeed the House of Commons. So I just found that appalling. But to discuss this, I'm pleased to welcome Jonathan Gullis, the former MP for Stoke-on-Trent North. Jonathan, thank you very much for your company. What did you make of that? I mean, these sort of protests, quote-unquote, have happened before. Do you find it petulant?
No, I found it distasteful, Darren, at the end of the day, but I also know Clive reasonably well, and I can be pretty certain that Clive has done what he wanted to do, which is get a reaction from us as, you know, sort of political nerds who like to commentate on social media, the media itself in general. He's got the publicity he wanted and he desired. But it is sad, it is tragic, it's completely against the very ethics and sort of the rules, really, of Parliament, which is we respect our democracy, of which His Majesty is an important player in it. Obviously, the state's opening of Parliament, signing bills into acts of law, and so forth. So, you know, Clive can virtue signal for a few of his lefty mates on Twitter all he wants. The reality is the British public are nowhere near behind his worldly view. Thank God. I think that's fair to say.
Well, indeed. A couple of viewers' comments there. Susan says, Darren, Clive Lewis should be thrown out of the King's Parliament. How can he swear allegiance to the Crown? Followed by the statement, he hopes to see a republic. He didn't make any allegiance. Starmer should take the whip away from Lewis. He's a horrible little man. I say dock his pay, Susan. That's what I say. But then Debbie says the MP should be pledging and swearing an allegiance to the British people, not a monarch. They don't pay their wages, Jonathan.
Well, look, I understand where that last comment comes from, but MPs do actually work and work hard in the interest of the people that they serve. You know, I made 761 contributions in my 4.5 years as a Member of Parliament for Stoke-on-Trent North, Gibbs, Greville and Talk. That is more than I think any elected 2019er that did it for them. 25,000 individual bits of casework, and obviously out and about across the constituency. So, you know, I was doing that. A lot of my former colleagues and you know, colleagues in the Conservative Party who were re-elected or elected for the first time will be doing that, as well as people from all parties. But at the end of the day, we have a democracy in which the monarchy plays a key and important role. We therefore should respect the traditions of our parliament, the mother of all parliaments, you know, which is something that we've exported around the world. And I'm very proud to have been a small part, a tiny, insignificant part in its long history. And I hope and wish all colleagues, regardless of some of their quite outrageous views, particularly the socialists who are now sadly in government, you know, that I wish them all the best going forward. And I hope that the Conservative Party will get it together in 5 years' time. We'll be able to come back stronger than before.
Well, on that, just very briefly, before I throw to Benjamin Butterworth, who hasn't stopped smiling since Thursday last week, I'm wondering, what would your vision be for a Conservative Party over the next 5 years that can be fit and ready in time for the next general election?
So ultimately, Darren, the Conservative Party, first of all, needs to be in listening mode. And that means it's got to understand why people were so angry that they were willing to vote either Reform, Labour, Lib Dem, Green, whoever they thought was best to vote for, to kick the Conservative candidate out in their local area. Then we need to actually have a set of policies, once we've understood that anger, that speak to our true and core values, but more importantly, that we actually convince the British public that if we are in office, we will deliver them. And I think that's essentially where we went wrong. A lot of promises were made, but not enough delivery was seen through. And so I hope that with the right leader in place, we'll be able to rebuild that trust with the British public, make that offer to them ahead of the next election, show that we really mean it and will deliver it. And then ultimately, I think the voters will come back to us. But as I say, there's an awful lot of listening to be done first, as well as organising CCHQ behind the scenes, where we need to get candidates selected earlier, candidates who represent Conservative values, candidates who are campaigners, not people who are being airlifted in, as we saw with a couple of former special advisors at the last minute, into seats that people believe to be safe. And ultimately, the voters saw right through it and stopped those people getting the title.
Benjamin Butterworth, are you quaking in your boots at that prospect of a future Conservative Party?
Not quite. I think it's going to be a very, very long road for them to get back. And I think people like Suella Braverman don't point the way to them learning how to win back the voters they lost. I wanted to ask Mr Gullis, you said that Labour will never win the election because they don't understand the red wall. Now, clearly, that isn't what happened. Why do you think so many people in seats like the one you held felt let down? And do you think now that you can actually learn something from the way the Labour Party won them back, which, frankly, 5 years ago, nobody saw coming?
Well, look, Benjamin, I think you ask a fair question, but I don't think the Labour Party won. So let me give you an example to back up what I've said there. Gareth Snell in Stoke Central got 0.5 percentage point fewer votes than what he got under Jeremy Corbyn in 2019. The Labour vote only went up by 5%, both in Stoke-on-Trent South and Stoke-on-Trent Central. In fact, my successors got 40% vote share. I was on 52% back in 2019. Ultimately, what happened is I lost 27% of my vote share, of which 24% went to Reform. And I think the problem was that people wanted to see delivery on issues like immigration in places like Stoke, where we are in the top 10 when it comes to the voluntary asylum dispersal scheme, ratios well and around 1 in 30 in the city centre when it comes to an illegal migrant versus a UK citizen, which is meant to be 1 in 200. Levelling up simply didn't happen fast enough. People didn't see or feel the change. Some of that was that we didn't communicate, I don't think, enough with people to say, due to inflation, due to cost of living, due to energy prices, some of those projects were bound to be paused and delayed. And I think that therefore we allow people to believe that the projects would be happening overnight and they would see and feel those changes much quicker than we were able to deliver. And then it's the basics. Look, local councils are being asked more than ever to pick up more and more. Yet there does need to be a serious discussion about how we're funding local councils. And if we're not going to give them sufficient funding for, in places like Stoke, particularly adult and children's social care, then are we actually serious about whether or not local authorities should be responsible for those very briefs?
Jonathan.
Because there's too many potholes in the roads and too many bus services as well that weren't being run on time.
Yeah.
A lot of people might think, well, why didn't the Tories do more when they were in power? You, of course, became the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party after Lee Anderson defected to the Reform Party. To the surprise of many, Lee kept his seat. Do you regret not defecting to Reform before the election if it meant you would have kept your job?
No.
Why not?
Look, Albie, I'm a Conservative. I joined this party at 18 years old. I totally respect people like Nigel, for example, who I've always had a good and cordial relationship with, and have exchanged views with him in the past in a friendly manner, and share what I would believe a lot of the views and values of people who have gone to Reform. But ultimately, look at the pledges that Reform were making. They weren't really properly scrutinised. They weren't really properly explained how they were going to be afforded, how they were going to be delivered. And actually, I think in terms of the tax policy, some of them actually ended up favouring the more wealthy in society than actually the people they claimed they would have been helped, the poorest in society. Although, obviously, I did share empathy around the increase of the thresholds, the tax thresholds, both the lower and the higher rates. But I joined the party at 18. I was made by my mum and dad to go and spend time with Labour, Lib Dems and the Conservatives between ages 16 to 18 before I chose, and signed up tragically as some Premier League footballers signed their first contract, the Conservative Party membership for my 18th birthday. I'm going to fight for the heart and soul of my party going forward. Our members are amazing and fantastic. You know that, Albie, as well firsthand. And I think that it's our duty now to go back to being a centre-right Conservative Party that has a broad coalition who we can try and win over at the next election.
Very quickly, Jonathan, who should be the next leader?
I don't know, Albie, and to be honest with you, mate, it doesn't matter what I think anymore. I'm just a humble member, so I have to wait who the MPs present to me in the final two. But I want someone with experience, someone who has been held top government positions before, someone who's been a long-standing member of the Voluntary Party, and it certainly should not be, and I will definitely not support Suella Braverman.
So you're saying it should be Robert Jenrick then?
Look, I like Robert a lot, but I don't think Robert has necessarily had enough of the top experience in the top jobs for my... but I wouldn't be upset if he was in the role. He certainly shares a lot of my views on immigration. I think he did a very good job when he was local housing community secretary. Obviously, places like Kidsgrove Sports Centre got the funding it needed when he was in charge to reopen in my local area. But you've got other names as well. Look, Kemi Badenoch is someone that's certainly been very interesting. Priti Patel has certainly been there. I think worked for William Hague after 97. Obviously, being a Home Secretary, served under Cameron, May and Boris. Didn't serve under Truss or Rishi, so maybe that gives her a cleaner platform to run on. Is obviously a darling of the membership.
Yeah.
But we need someone who's going to bring all the wings together. We cannot get bogged down in left versus right. We just need to be Conservatives.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But, Jonathan, I tell you what, as someone who campaigned heart and soul in 2019, I think you've got one hell of a task ahead of you. I tell you that for free. But on a positive note to end, Kathleen says, Jonathan, I couldn't believe it when I heard you'd lost your seat. It was a travesty. So there you are. You've got it. Kathleen, back in your corner. Thank you very much for your company. That's Jonathan Gullis, the former MP for Stoke-on-Trent North. Madeleine Grant, what did you make of what you heard there?
I think it was interesting what Jonathan said at the end about the leadership candidates. That I think there is that understanding that you have to have someone who's a team player.
Yeah.
And I think Suella Braverman's outbursts often sort of, should we say, outside the tent in a foreign audience seem to have a lot more to do with putting Suella Braverman on the map and creating a stir rather than what is in the interest of the party.
Renee, are you super Suella all the way?
I like Suella, actually, because I think she's speaking to the people, but I'm not sure she is leadership material because of that. I think maybe she's making a bid to go somewhere else.
Hey, well, maybe, but I tell you what, all of our viewers are, well, many of our viewers, not all of them, obviously, I can't speak for all of them, but many of them are saying, look, I'm Suella. But, right, folks, we'll leave that one there. Thank you very much. Coming up on the Saturday 5, Renee and Albie will be scrapping over whether Monday should be a bank holiday if, of course, England win the Euros tomorrow. And you get to ask us, the 5, your questions, gbnews.com/your say. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News. See you after.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Question is...
Should our museums stay free for everyone and anyone, or should we be charging our tourists?
So many of the artifacts are from around the world, stolen actually. I think it's almost to add insult to injury to ask people to pay to see the artifacts that were taken without their permission. One of the things that the museum set itself up for is a kind of World Heritage where you can see the stuff they took from your country free of charge. Because the British state's willing to do that, is one of the reasons why we hold on to many of the artifacts from around the world instead of giving them back.
I mean, that's a noble argument, Wayman, but none of the other countries in the world that also contain artefacts from all over the world indulge in that, do they? We still have to pay to see anything that's come from the UK that might be overseas?
No, but the absolute truth is that we've stolen a lot more over many more years than anybody else, because we're a very, we had a very, very big empire, and during that time, taking things from other countries without their permission.
And I think our wonderful country, the United Kingdom, is the cradle of modern civilization, not of the ancient world, but of the modern world. You know, for centuries, we've contributed things to the world, which has spread out around the world, and the influence that we've put upon countries around the globe has been massively significant. I think it's a privilege for people to be able to come to this country and track the history of our country through our museums. I can't understand why they've ever been free. The upkeep of museums runs into hundreds of millions of pounds a year. Somebody's got to maintain them and keep them good. Somebody's got to go around the world and collect the artifacts which are in our museums. And I've always had the adage in life, if something is free, it's probably not worth having.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. We've just had Renee, Dr. Renee, selling her services there during the break. But as a GP, I don't know what you thought I meant. Absolute filth. Right, thank you very much for your messages about tonight's topics. Rusty has written in, and Rusty has some sharp words for Jonathan Gullis. I nearly said MP there, former MP, and that's the salient point here, because Rusty says, well, at least Suella won her seat. Well, she's not holding back, or he's not holding back. Could Rusty be either or? They, them, maybe. And
Just to be safe.
Bill Fry says she will be Tory leader or in the Reform Party very soon indeed.
I think the latter is a lot more likely.
I don't even think Reform should touch her with a barge pole.
Do you not?
No. She's a liability.
You're just scared they'll take off with her.
No, I'm not scared of Suella at all. I have too much respect for my friends at Reform to want Suella to go over there and ruin their party as well.
Okie dokie. And do you know, I really like this comment actually where Mick wrote in, and Mick said, Darren, you can have this headline if we win tomorrow. The reign of Spain falls mainly because of Kane. I like
very
that.
good.
Isn't that good? Isn't that
Very good.
Mick, you've got a future.
By God, he's got it.
Is it
strap writing?
A future strap writing, yeah. Oh, yes, you can work for us.
That's not GB News, Mick.
No, it's not. It's not. Right, now it's time for this. Yes, indeedy, it's tonight's main event. Ding, 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 round out. Should Monday be a bank holiday if England win the Euros? Well, Dr. Renee and Albiam and Kona are going to scrap this one out. Seconds out, it's round one. Take it away.
We are hopefully going to win a historic win tomorrow at the Euros over in Berlin. And wouldn't it be wonderful, after such a rubbish summer, with such bad weather, the general election, blues, all of the division that comes for a general election, for us to all come together after we hopefully win the Euros tomorrow, or lose, to be honest, because it's not really going to make much of a difference to what people do on Sunday evening. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a bank holiday on Monday morning? Because we do know, after these big sporting events, when they do happen on weekdays, we do see a spike in sick days that happen anyway. So why don't we turn an informal bank holiday into a formal bank holiday, and we can all celebrate England's hopeful win tomorrow at the Euros. Renee, you're a party pooper, aren't you? What do you think about this?
OK, so what we also know, Albie, is as much as it would be lovely for everybody in the country to be able to have the day off and celebrate, there are many, many people who will not be able to have the day off. People who generally tend to be in lower paid jobs, working class people, doctors, nurses, firemen, policemen, who still have to go to work. So this is actually just a luxury for people like you who can take the day off because they're able to. We also know that most of the country is working from home on Mondays now, so it won't make any difference to them at all because they're going to be snoring on their sofa with their feet up, as they usually do on a Monday. The productivity in this country is at an all-time low. It's absolutely appalling. We cannot afford to paralyse businesses once again with another bank holiday, and there is no statutory right for an employer to have to pay 1.5 times or 2 times if you work on a bank holiday. So basically, poor people who empty our bins, go to our hospitals, clean our floors, serve in our Starbucks, will have to carry on working. They won't enjoy it, or to make sure you can get your latte.
Renee, that is an argument to get rid of all bank holidays. Is that an argument that you would be willing to make? Because bank holidays don't apply to everyone when bank holidays happen anyway.
Right.
And we have fewer bank holidays in the United Kingdom than the US have, which is a more productive economy. So do you just think we should get rid of all bank holidays completely?
Right, so
based on that bile you just gave
I'm
out?
so pleased that you just raised the US as an example, because what the US also have is the stingiest holiday entitlement for workers of any country in the world. They get 2 weeks holiday in America, so they need their bank holidays. We generally get 5 weeks holiday. 4 to 5 weeks is what people get. And then, Albie, I want to remind you that we actually have already won the football before. It was the women a few years ago. We didn't get a bank holiday then. Were you calling for it then?
Renee, we all know why people were not calling for a bank holiday after the Women's Euros. And that is because the Women's Euros is just not yet as important as the Men's Euros. And that is the simple fact of the matter. I'm a big supporter of the Lionesses, but are you seriously telling me that the Women's Euros is as important as the Men's Euros as in 2024?
I'm seriously telling you that the women managed to do what the men haven't been able to do
and I
since
congratulate them
1966.
for it.
So if you want to call for a bank holiday, you should have been calling for it back then. It's ridiculous now.
All right, we'll leave that one there and let viewers decide who won that one. Colin has... I thought you were about to slap her or something. I looked over. I was about to call the police. Colin says definitely a bank holiday for the win, Renee.
Is that my Colin?
No,
He's in trouble when I get home.
I don't think it is. But cancel one of our existing bank holidays. Would you be happy with that compromise?
Well, I like our existing bank holidays.
Right, so you wouldn't be up
Actually, I think we should have another bank holiday on my birthday, which is April 23rd.
And then briefly, Albie, one for you, which is they're saying, well, it's a bit short notice for businesses, isn't it, and who are struggling?
I think it is, and I think it's something that actually the government should have thought about sooner rather than doing it very last minute. Look, I think it's unlikely to happen at this point, but I think it would have been a good idea to have a bank holiday after we hopefully win the Euros. And actually, I think we need more bank holidays. Let's have bank holidays on patron saint days as well. St George's Day.
Yeah, which is also René's birthday. And Shakespeare was also born on that day.
Oh, I didn't realise this.
Yeah.
St René's Day.
St René's Day. And people could choose which of them they choose to honour, Shakespeare, St George or René.
Yeah. Well, Benjamin Butterworth, Go for Growth didn't last very long, did it?
Well, I was born on St Patrick's Day, so
Oh,
I also
excellent.
agree with that one.
Booze.
But look,
Boo.
I mean, look, if there were a bank holiday, it would be a week on Monday. That's how it would work. And Keir Starmer did call for one when the women won the Euros, so he's been consistent. But do you know what? I actually think, first of all, Tesco is going to close all their stores at 7:30 so their employees can watch the match, which I think is a very decent thing to do. I actually think that in this day and age, we struggle to have a national identity. We're quite a divided society. There are very few times, it's basically just things around the royal family, where communities come together. And so I think the best argument for a bank holiday and for really leaning into a celebration, if we're lucky enough to have that, is that it would be a moment of togetherness as a society that I think we really need. And the idea that we have a day off, that there's an incredible parade through London with them on top of the bus, I think that would be a moment of unity that this country desperately needs.
I'm going to throw to what the public that our wonderful reporter Will Hollis interviewed had to say. But Madeleine Grant, I want to put you on the spot ever so slightly, if I may. That argument that they've just had there, where Renee mentioned that the fact that the Lionesses, the women, won the Euros, there wasn't a bank holiday then. Do you, our very own Ben Leo, who was normally on this show, by the way, caused havoc on the internet because he said, while sat in one of these chairs, that actually it's not the same game. Where are you on that argument?
Well, frankly, I'm a beleaguered minority because I don't give a damn about football. I've never been interested in football at all. Frankly, I mean, I guess a bank holiday would be nice for me personally, but I just don't really understand the mania about this sport. I'd rather have a national holiday for a decent sport like cricket or tennis. So for me, I feel like I can just completely tap out of this, and even the argument about the Lionesses or the male footballers, I just really don't care. I've never understood it, and I'm sorry, I know that makes me a Martian, but whatever.
No, I'm sure there will be some viewers that agree. We're going to find out, though, what the public had to say. This is what Will Hollis managed to get out of the British people later on.
Time for the family. Always a good time to have a bank holiday. Free paid day is great, isn't it? Perfect.
I think a bank holiday would be great because, you know, everyone from the UK will be, you know, staying up on Sunday watching the game, and it's just nice just to have that day to just be happy and that we won, well, hopefully.
100% we need a bank holiday. First time since 1966 that we could be bringing it home. What more better reason to get a bank holiday than that?
I think it's absolutely necessary. I mean, why shouldn't we? Winning a tournament like the Euros comes once every blue moon. Well, never in my lifetime, never in anyone's lifetime. So why not give the public a day off? You know, we deserve it.
A few days off.
Well, that was Will Hollis there speaking to Prince Harry. I kid, of course. He's in California. Now, I wonder then what you all made of that. Does that change your mind?
Well, I'm right, according to the public.
Yeah.
Which makes me even more determined to be right.
You're going to dig in.
It's a bit bread and circus. I mean, obviously, people, like, if you get a free day off, everyone will say yes to it. But it's kind of different to, is it a good idea? Is it good for the economy? These are all different questions, aren't they?
But do you not think, though, Benjamin, that the Labour government, new as it is, should have other priorities other than, what, a £2 billion bank holiday? Is that how much you said, Renee?
Well, I mean, again, I think that goes back to not having bank holidays at all. I hate, by the way, that we have this cluster of bank holidays around April and May and then nothing at the back end of the year. I think it's a ridiculous...
Well, I don't know why. You get enough holidays. We all see on this show jetting off like one of the Bill Gates or someone like that.
I would say that, you know, win or lose, this coming Monday is effectively a bank holiday because when 20 million people are on the pints until 10 p.m, then the productivity is going to be pretty rubbish.
Benjamin,
anyway.
I will be in my GP surgery at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, as will all of the other doctors in the country. So, no, it won't effectively be a bank holiday.
But I mean, well, yeah, you might have a lot of people that are...
I'm going on the BBC, which is, I deserve a medal for that.
But look, I mean, in reality, I think a lot of bosses, I've seen some bosses sharing emails online saying that they've told their workers you can have Monday morning off anyway, because people are going to be celebrating whether we win or lose. And so in some sense, it's a bit of a redundant question.
So, Benjamin, why then... I must say you've outed yourself as a misogynist, because why did you not call for a bank holiday when the Lionesses won?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I even watched the game. I would have said we should have had a bank holiday.
Yeah.
But I have. I've seen the Lionesses playing.
So what is it about the men running about in little shorts that you like more than the women?
I've seen the Lionesses at Wembley. They're fantastic. And my niece plays for Manchester City's women's team.
Oh, that's very impressive.
I'm related to several professional footballers, which is highly implausible.
Right. Well, the sports gene missed out, didn't it? Right. OK, folks.
You too.
Still ahead is the bunch of 5. And we hear your questions to us after this short break.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. After a largely cloudy first half of the weekend, we do still have some outbreaks of rain to contend with into this evening and overnight, particularly for the Scottish borders and to Northumberland towards the North York Moors. There could be some heavy pulses at times, so do take care if you are travelling here. Elsewhere, it is a largely dry night, some clear spells, for particularly Northern Ireland down towards southern areas of England and Wales, where here we could see rural temperatures drop down into single figures. Most of our towns and cities, though, will be holding up in double digits as we start off Sunday morning. But really the best and the brightest of the conditions first thing, very likely to be across the southern portion of the nation. Actually quite a decent amount of sunshine here first thing, and a very nice start to the second half of the weekend. Still got that expansive cloud and rain outbreaks across northern England, but Northern Ireland seeing some bright spots, and actually parts of central Scotland into Argyll and Bute and the Southern Highlands not faring too badly either. The far northeast of Scotland, though, much cloudier with some drizzle, murky conditions around, particularly along coastal areas as we see that northerly feed of air filter in that cloud. The rain across southern Scotland into northern England will gradually ease a bit and turn lighter as we head throughout the day, generally turning patchier, but it is going to be cloudy and fairly dull and dreary still throughout a good portion of the day. I'm feeling quite cool underneath that, still temperatures only around 15 to 17 degrees Celsius. Elsewhere in the sunnier spots, parts of central Scotland down towards southern England and Wales, we could see 21, 23 degrees Celsius, so a bit more pleasant and a bit warmer here. If you're hoping that the new week would bring something a bit more summery, I'm afraid I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, because we've got another area of low pressure arriving from the southwest on Monday. This will be bringing bands of showers, some of those looking like they could be heavy, with some thunderstorms, even some hail in the mixture as well, pushing into southern areas of England and Wales. The northern half of the UK seeing the brightest, probably best of the conditions first thing on Monday, so certainly for northern England it will be a much better start to the day compared to what we've seen over the weekend, but staying unsettled throughout next week. Bye-bye.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Sorry, as you can imagine, the breaks during this show are quite something, so I'm very unprofessionally laughing at my own joke. Anyway...
No one else is laughing.
And Kit has written in, and Kit says, if bank holidays are awarded, D-Day should have been the deserving cause. I think that's a very good point. Well done, Kit, or Mr McAvoy. I'm confused as to what the name actually is there, because there are two different options. But never mind. Whoever you are, that was a brilliant contribution. I thank you very much for it. And Christine says, well, I'm with Renee. Does this mean no one's going to turn up for work on Monday, costing businesses millions? Yeah, I mean, Benjamin Butterworth's already called in sick. But now Oh, it all kicks off on this show. It is time, though, for this week's Bunch of Five, as I'm sure you could have possibly found out from that. And we are starting with Albion and Corner.
We are. So the nationalist Scottish newspaper called The National really put quite a splash on the front page of their newspaper. We're going to get an image of that up for you now. But for those of you who are listening to us on the radio, we have a picture of a Spanish football player kicking a ball which looks like an English man, complete with an England flag emblazoned across this rather large, round man's stomach. And it says, this national headline, "Time for Revenge." Why is it that the Scots hate the English so much that they wouldn't even support us when we're in the final of the Euros?
I don't think you can judge all the Scots by the National. They're completely insane.
Madeline, does anyone buy it?
I don't know, but they've written some pretty
weird,
out there stuff over the years. To be honest, I think it's quite... I don't want to get too kind of snowflakey about these things because it's quite a common joke that we do make these jokes about, you know, national enmities and stuff. Like, you know, the classic, I can't remember his name, one of the football experts around the table won't know, but you remember when that guy started listing British heroes and was like, your boys took one hell of a beating. I mean, that was just really, really funny. And it's kind of, it's not worth splitting hairs over this. It's quite, I think.
But if the Telegraph did that about Scotland, how do you think the Scots would react?
Well, I guess probably some people would laugh it off and some of the more deranged nationalists would kick off about it. But I'm saying we don't need to be like that, you know, let it ruffle.
Well, I mean, the cartoonists do this all of the time, don't they?
Yeah. Although I will say it's funny that they seem to imply that, like, Britain is England is sort of like a uniquely tubby country. Well, there are plenty of fatties on both sides of the border, I would say.
Albie, all I could say, just to bring that to a close, is that Owen Jones writes for The National. Need I say any more?
No.
And
Right.
I'll just point out, I think most Portuguese football fans are definitely supporting England against Spain. So I think these neighbourly rivalries go across the world.
Portugal is our oldest ally.
It is our oldest
I didn't know
ally.
that, yes.
Renee, what have you got?
So we've heard so much this week about GDP and will Keir, won't he increase it, how much to, that I actually thought that we're probably missing a trick and we need to throw things out to the public to give us ideas of how to spruce up our military without costing too much. And I found this wonderful video from Ukraine where these fishermen are knocking down a Russian drone with fish.
Oh, that's incredible.
There they go.
How much did that cost us?
That's fantastic.
That was amazing.
I just thought, well, maybe we're just missing a trick. We don't need bullets or planes. We just need some fishermen and some fish.
Yeah.
And maybe there are other inventive ideas that people can come up with.
God, that was good aim.
Yeah, very good aim.
I doubt the fish appreciated it.
Well, no. Indeed
He died
not.
for his country, OK?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well,
I mean, so I'm just trying to imagine how they did this. So did they go fishing and then get the fish and then chuck it up at a drone? It just maybe doesn't seem like the most time-effective way of getting a drone. I know I'm boring and clever like that. I just don't think it's the most time-efficient and therefore cost-efficient way to get drones out of the sky, Renee.
But we could send them with fish, ready, done. And they could just go boom, boom, boom.
Oh, I'm not sure.
You're not with it?
No.
All right, we're going to be a bit rogue because we're going to Madeline Grant next to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
What have you got for us?
Oh, well, I was just... Tomorrow is the...
You looked very surprised there.
Well, it's my first time on the show.
Yes, it is.
You're doing very well.
Finding it hard to, like, stare down the barrel of the camera like Big Brother, like, sort of...
Just quite intimidating.
See you. Well, what I wanted to raise is simply that it is the Wimbledon final tomorrow, and this is huge. It's a replay of the exact Wimbledon final last year. Same people, Djokovic and Alcaraz. And what I think is so interesting is that there does seem to be this real contempt for Novak Djokovic. And people say it's because of his anti-vaccine stance.
No, I adore him.
I love him too. But this is why I asked, because it long predates the pandemic. You know, he got booed at Wimbledon, which is a tournament that prides itself on manners and gentility. And he was booed when he was facing off against Kyle Edmund, I think, in 2018 or 2019. And, you know, I think part of the reason for this is that he had the audacity to be damn good and to beat the records set by Nadal and Federer. And there's a feeling that he's not as worthy as them somehow.
But Benjamin Butterworth, what have you got? We're running short of time, so...
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes, what have you got?
Well, Bill Gates, previously the richest man in the world, is on a dash for poverty. But still, people are saying that the $60 billion he's donated to good causes, like tackling malaria, they're saying that he's just trying to control world health in the way that he has controlled computing for the last few decades. So Bill Gates has responded in today's Times saying, well, why don't you all donate your money instead of me doing it? Now,
for every dollar he spends, he earns 10, by the way.
Well, he's got a goal to only have 1% of his income in 20 years' time, 1% of his wealth. Dr. Renee, what do you think? He's obviously, you know, had a big impact on things like the vaccine, the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, I think anybody that spends money genuinely to treat things and help people in the developing world is a wonderful thing. I'm not going to knock that ever. I do have my doubts about Bill Gates and everything he wants to achieve. Why does he now own almost all of the farmland in America when he actually doesn't want us eating meat?
What do you think?
Well, look, he's welcome to do whatever he wants with this money. I just wish he would be a bit more relaxed about keeping his political opinions to himself.
But you don't say that about Elon Musk.
Well, because Bill Gates is wrong.
Well, exactly.
Darren,
free speech if I like you, no speech if I don't. You call yourself a free speech warrior.
Oh, I'm being facetious, Albie. I'm being facetious. Look, I am on that point though. I am delighted that Elon Musk hasn't given all his money away, because without Twitter as the de facto public square, I think we'd be up
I also love
Pooh
how
Creek without a paddle.
Absolutely none of the goons who were like, I'm lowering Twitter, this is disgusting. They haven't left. They're all still there.
I know.
You know.
And Threads is really not really...
No one went to Mastodon. It's just not going to happen, guys. No.
I was just very briefly going to say that Wes Streeting has said he would he may be banning puberty blockers, and I said I'm going to vote for the Labour Party if they do this. I'm not actually. But, you know, I did think it was a real step in the right direction. So that I said that just to make Benjamin Butterworth faint.
It's like talking to Joe Biden at this point. I've no idea what you're on about. Well, but I think we should be grateful for people like Bill Gates and the kind of conspiracy theories that are...
That was my topic. We moved on from Bill Gates.
What?
That was my topic.
We're talking about Wes Streeting now.
And puberty
Have you done
like
this show
Joe
before? It's Jill Biden.
It is.
Right, we'll leave that there anyway, on that funny note. Still ahead, though, we're going to answer all of your questions in Ask the Five. No topics are off limits. I'm going to pump Benjamin with adrenaline. We'll be back after this break. Thank you very much.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, time for the best part of the show, our Greatest Britain, where we share amazing people who do amazing things. And this week, that is Dr. Leo Cheng and Reverend Hilary Cheng.
Well, Dr. Chen regularly serves as a volunteer surgeon aboard the Mercy ships in West Africa and has recently served his 17th mission aboard the ships. He volunteers with his wife, Reverend Hilary Cheng, a Methodist minister in the UK.
Thank you for joining us, and what a privilege. So just briefly explain, what are Mercy ships?
Well, Mercy ship provide world-class surgery on the ship, and the ship then sail to these poorest of the poor country because there's no infrastructure to get road or rail there. And we offer free surgery and also education, training of medical staff, and partner with the local or the host nation to build up their surgical and anaesthetic services.
So how long have you been travelling West Africa? You go on all these different ships, different ports, and you treat the needy and the vulnerable. How long have you both been doing this?
20 years.
20 years?
Just over 20 years.
And you take the time to do this out of your own holiday from work. Why do you do it?
Well, because I'm indebted to the education in this country with all the qualification I get. And NHS is great. I love the NHS because without NHS, we see cases that we see in the low-income country. And I want to make use of my hand to help those people who have no way of helping themselves, because the tumours, the deformities, not just a physical ailment, but it's being ostracised and die early, commit suicide because they've been ostracised by their family.
When you're on the ship, you are seeing the very worst that the country can offer. I find it a great privilege to work alongside these people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your messages about tonight's topics. Now, we're going to get, though, to the, well, most important bit, because it brings you in, the viewers at home. It's time for this. Indeed, it's Ask the Five. Let's see what you've got for us this week. Hopefully you've been kind. Jennifer's written in, and Jen says, if you could invent one new law that could be implemented tomorrow, what would it be and what would the punishment be? Well, I think I would be sort of Dubai-esque in punishing those who play music on public transport out loud. I think it's a damn disgrace.
So what do you mean by Dubai-esque? You chop their hands off?
Chop their hand off. Wow. No, I wouldn't
It's
actually.
not Aladdin.
Wow.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
all right, Renee, what would you do?
So I would stop people eating in the street.
Well, I thought you were going to stop
and on trains and public transport. And the punishment will be for them to actually clean all of the dirt off the street.
Wow, Albie?
Everyone knows how scared I am of 3 manholes in a row. So my new law would be to, you know, those triple...
This is before the watershed.
Oh, for goodness sake. I'm talking about you get these 3 pallets on the floor.
Yes.
And if you go over them, it's bad luck. I would get rid of the 3rd one, so there's only 2. And if you go over those, then it's good luck. And the punishment would be, if there was a place where there were 3 manholes, it would be that someone had to go down that manhole and fix whatever was under there.
Maddie?
I think I'd probably ban distressed denim. It's horrible.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the fashion hell.
And what would the punishment be if you were distressed denim?
Maybe they have to, like, darn all of the holes and the rips in the denim.
Oh, yes,
Maybe
that's a good one.
Good for people's sewing skills, and they
Yes.
look better as well.
Well, Benjamin, you'll be on for some time.
I would ban those bikes, those cycle bikes that people hire and then just dump in the middle of the pavement.
Yes.
It really annoys me, and it happens all the time. And, you know, I don't have a pram or a wheelchair or anything, so it must be a nightmare for people doing that. And the punishment would be that you'd have to listen to Albie talk about manholes for another half hour.
They're terrifying.
Oh,
I can't
right.
believe no one else has this.
There's this question from Alan. Alan says, what will you all do if England win? Let's be quite brief on this one, Albie.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm on a breakfast show the next morning, so I had to go to sleep quite early.
Be tame. Renee?
I'll be going to work the next day, so it will be very exciting for me.
Oh, I'll be going to work the next day too, but I'll still, you know me.
Probably nothing.
Nothing? Yes, quickly.
You're not going to watch it.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you all.
James Anderson.
I'm happy
what are you
going to
do to celebrate James Anderson?
Anything. Whatever he wants from me.
Benjamin?
I can't wait for it. I'm going to a party to watch the match, and I hope we win. 3.5 years ago, I was in an Italian restaurant when Italy won. I'd been sent there by the newspaper. I wasn't just being disloyal. And it was fantastic fun, but I hope this time we do it ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right, Jenny says, can Lammy be Foreign Secretary if Trump wins? Benjamin Butterworth?
I think that you shouldn't allow a foreign country to be dictating who gets
Well, he
jobs.
has bashed him, and it is our closest ally.
So did Boris Johnson before.
Yeah, but I think
That's
actually,
true.
I do
That's
understand the logic that it's far from ideal. But actually, I think there's a real problem of saying, oh, well, because another country's elected that person and they don't like one of our politicians,
I
we
think
should
he
change
should
our mind.
have to be Foreign Secretary if Trump wins, to squirm in front of him.
This is very funny, and I kid you not, this was not planned in advance. I have not seen these questions. But Dave says, what should happen to people that play music on public transport?
Oh, God.
They can have their hands chopped off by Darren.
Dave, I'm afraid under my dictatorship, that's it. It's off.
Free
That's my
headphones,
plan.
maybe?
Free
I
headphones.
think people should have their ears clipped like they did. I think that
You're
was
very
a punishment
spendy.
for...
Bank holidays, free headphones.
I don't know. I'm feeling good because England are in the final tomorrow, I think.
But then
All
wouldn't
right.
people play it loud to get free headphones?
Indeed. Folks, we'll leave that one there. Thank you very much to our guest tonight. Hasn't Madeline Grant been wonderful? And to that panel, as ever, the oldies, thank you very much indeed. Renee, that wasn't a slide. Next up, it's the brilliant Leo Kirst with the Saturday Night Showdown. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. After a largely cloudy first half of the weekend, we do still have some outbreaks of rain to contend with into this evening and overnight, particularly for the Scottish borders and to Northumberland towards the North York Moors. There could be some heavy pulses at times, so do take care if you are travelling here. Elsewhere, it is a largely dry night, some clear spells for particularly Northern Ireland down towards southern areas of England and Wales, where here we could see rural temperatures drop down into single figures. Most of our towns and cities, though, will be holding up in double digits as we start off Sunday morning. But really the best and the brightest of the conditions first thing, very likely to be across the southern portion of the nation. Actually quite a decent amount of sunshine here first thing, and a very nice start to the second half of the weekend. Still got that expansive cloud and rain outbreaks across northern England, but Northern Ireland seeing some bright spots, and actually parts of central Scotland into Argyll and Bute and the Southern Highlands not faring too badly either. The far northeast of Scotland though much cloudier with some drizzle, murky conditions around particularly along coastal areas as we see that northerly feed of air filter in that cloud. The rain across southern Scotland into northern England will gradually ease a bit and turn lighter as we head throughout the day, generally turning patchier, but it is going to be cloudy and fairly dull and dreary still throughout a good portion of the day, and feeling quite cool underneath that. Still temperatures only around 15 to 17 degrees Celsius. Elsewhere in the sunnier spots, parts of central Scotland down towards southern England and Wales, we could see 21, 23 degrees Celsius, so a bit more pleasant and a bit warmer here. If you're hoping that the new week would bring something a bit more summery, I'm afraid I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, because we've got another area of low pressure arriving from the southwest on Monday. This will be bringing bands of showers, some of those looking like they could be heavy with some thunderstorms, even some hail in the mixture as well, pushing into southern areas of England and Wales. The northern half of the UK seeing the brightest, probably best of the conditions first thing on Monday, so certainly for northern England it will be a much better start to the day compared to what we've seen